So hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this month guest webinar series, Testing with Inclusion, the Crucial Role of Accessibility in QA Strategies, where we host Laveena Ramchandani. I hope I got this right this time.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I hand over to Laveena, I want to introduce to say a few words about Practitest for those of you who are not familiar with who we are and what we do. So Practitest is a centralized testing hub. Okay, we're an end-to-end enterprise-grade test management platform powered by QA intelligence and AI. We are, as you can see, loved by users. You can see all kinds of G2 badge. We are a cloud solution. We adhere to security regulations, ISO, SOC, and GDPR compliant. We're based out of AWS, either in the US or in Dublin in the UK. As I mentioned, we have end-to-end modules all the way from planning in order to start connecting requirements or user stories, all the way to the core modules of our platform, which is testing, test execution, test library, and test sets and runs, issue modules, and then reports and dashboards to visualize the results of what we do. Among our customer base, you can see, I hope you're familiar with some of the names here, but you can see that we work with customers across multiple industries, and I expect most of you to already know that in nowadays, almost any company needs a test management solution. So it's not limited to just software and technology companies. We work with other verticals, healthcare, finance, retails, and others. So that's among our customers. And two last things before I hand over to Laveena. One is that we invite you to also join us for next one session where we host Adam Formanek about testing at scale, how to test when you go globally with a fleet of thousands of machines, which will be a webinar which will take place on May 21st. And last but not least, if you are interested to learn more about Practitest and see what we do, you're welcome to go into our website, see a recorded demo, or join one of our ongoing live training session where you can access the link here, or reach out to us to start a free trial. And that's about it from my end. Now, before I hand over to you, Laveena, if you want to say a few, I haven't verbalized who you are, so maybe if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Noah. So first, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, share. I just wanted to make sure my slides are visible. So I already have an introduction on my slide. So what I'll do is I'll get started with that. So thank you so much, Practitest, and thank you so much, Noah and May, who is actually on leave, for reaching out to me to be part of this little series. And it's really interesting that we are going to talk about accessibility today. And it's actually a very, very important topic. It's actually very close to me as well, because there's a lot of change that has come because of being an advocate for it. People reach out more, not just at work, but externally as well, just to find out more information on how to actually work with this topic. So without further ado, I'll get started. So I have a short agenda today, just an introduction on the topic, the European Act of Accessibility that's in 2 months, QA strategies, a simple checklist, and some summary at the end, which I'll be closing with. So who am I? So I am basically a graduate who's done computer science, and I actually fell into testing. I never knew what software testing was all about. And today I'm nearly 11 years in this area, in this remit. And I've really been enjoying as a tester, because I've experienced different sort of sectors like oil and gas, transport, financial services, consumer goods, aviation now, currently EasyJet. And not just that, I'm actually an international speaker. I have been part of loads of panels. I have been part of loads of podcasts. And I attend a lot of conferences and been a keynote as well. So I'm really, really enjoying this world of software testing, because there's so much that one doesn't realize until they find out from loads of these sort of tools that are coming out, or just attending a conference. So it's been really interesting. And not just that, I've actually trained a lot of testers as well, who actually have landed into their first ever testing job. So it's really, really fun, I think, this sort of world for me. So in a nutshell, this was who Laveena is. So, without further ado, I'm going to get started with the topic of inclusivity and why should we strategize having accessibility as part of an SDLC. So, before we get started, I just wanted to explain to you this image. This is a very, very powerful and meaningful image because it tells you that a disability can be three things: permanent, temporary, or situational. So, you can see that people go through different type of disabilities. I can put myself as an example. I have a little toddler, he's 2, but when I was a new parent 2 years ago, I was doing things like typing on my laptop, maybe blogging at times, and making sure the baby's with me. I was the person over here, so I had a temporary or a situational sort of disability that I have one arm to use and get through my task. And again, it's a lot of things like maybe workers who are actually working in construction sites, they can't hear. So they temporarily have no ears because it's so noisy and it can end up in an accident for them. So, how do we make things easier for people? Not just physically around you, but on the apps, on mobile, in workplaces? How do we actually understand what's important for making everyone comfortable, everyone inclusive? I'll give you a simple task as well to take home. It would be really interesting to find out where is the lift in your company for people who might come with crutches one day or a wheelchair one day, because when I joined the company, I had no clue where the lift is. And it took me some time to find out. So it's really, really interesting to find these small things that actually make meaningful information at the end of the day and how you could help someone. So, European Accessibility Act. This is a really important and interesting act that is coming, but it does not mean that we should rush into accessibility. Okay, we should not expect these acts to come to basically react. We should have things inbuilt already, baked in into our part of strategies, into part of development, and hope that we can basically be ready when these acts are there. These acts are not there to scare us. These acts are there to support us. And this act is coming in June does not mean that you're going to be penalized this year. It means that it's going to give you 5 years to work on it, but by 5 years you should have something in place. But that's what I mean. You should not wait for something like this to come in. You should be reactive to it in an earlier stage. So this act and local government legislation is combined in Europe. This act is not just about a website meeting the WCAG guidelines, which is the accessibility guidelines. Organizations has accessibility in all its processes. That's what we're trying to look in this act. Accessibility education is what this act is going to provide as well, and an inclusive environment. For website and mobile apps, we want to sort of try and fix the WCAG issues, accessibility statements, a paper trail of audits, and means of customer feedback. So, this is for all of us people working in a digital world and having customers in the EU. This is what we want to try and tick off as we sort of emerge into this act. But there are principles as well, right? So when we are trying to think about accessibility, the three principles that scream at us are compliance, where all your audits checks come, your culture. So culture is embracing accessibility and embedding it into everything you do as an organization, and the education, making sure teams have required skills to be able to deliver accessible services. So, if we are not going to train our teams how to use a screen reader, what things to look into, how to only navigate with keyboards, how to squint your eyes and just check the colors are looking all right, or how do I know this color does not match with another color? This is all part of an education, and it's super important that as much as you want your team to understand the WCAG guidelines, they should also understand the tools. And you don't have to memorize the guidelines. They're very, very intense. They're very, very complicated in their language as well. So as long as you skim it and you understand the main priorities, that's what's important. And then I think compliance and culture and education bind really well to deliver this as part of your software development lifecycle. So the big question now is why shift left? So we are not just talking about accessibility testing, we are also talking about accessibility being part of the development life cycle. So why all engineers should be thinking about shifting this to the left? Well, there are various reasons. Some of the simple reasons are development. When we are coding our applications, we start thinking earlier. So we're baking things as part of our application growth. We are not bringing this in later at the end, because if we bring this later in the end, it takes time for a developer or a team of developers to change the code according to accessible needs, as well as most likely education, as well as auditing might come in place. So, why not think about these things earlier? Take a bit of a longer time to plan, but plan it properly so that when you're working on it, you know exactly what to expect. So, my suggestion would be start early and often. So, shift left testing. So, include accessibility checks early in the development process, during design, development, and before launch, according to sort of a tool that I have been using, Recite Me. Continuous integration is also important. So integrate accessibility checks into your CI/CD pipeline. And this is another tool that I think PractiTest also have it. And X-Ray is another sort of tool that's out there that could potentially support you with these things. What I mean by continuous integration is when you have your CI/CD pipelines, I'm sure you run automated checks for end-to-end or API tests, integration tests. So why not add a simple test with Axe or any other accessibility tool that can run and give you the vulnerabilities? And if those vulnerabilities are medium to low, you can move to production. But if a vulnerability pops up as high, you go back and you do your you basically move that issue or bug into your boards, and then come back to a new iteration and try and deliver that. So that's a nicer way of doing it. I'm actually doing this now with one team, and it's resulting in something a bit more proactive. And people are looking into this and reacting rather than going into production. We should do regular testing. So conduct regular accessibility tests throughout the development lifecycle. And you will also get some formal audits. So basically, you can use companies out there who do quick formal audits for you for free, or you can actually hire an audit company who will come into your company, and every 6 months you can show them that this is a small iteration of what we've developed. What do you think? And they will write down a report for you, which you can move it as an epic into your teams, whether you are doing agile or whether you're doing waterfall, and then build your tool accordingly. It's always like a backbone. I would call auditing as a backbone because they're actually supporting you towards the right path. Employ a multi-pronged approach. So make sure you have some sort of automated tools, detect common issues using tools. I know in the UK, we use GovUK, which helps us understand these tools. I guess in your countries, you will also have some sort of government website that will help you find what is the right level of accessibility for your country. Do manual testing because, of course, we all know everything cannot be automated. The look and the feel. Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling fun using this app? Is it really frustrating me? This is something that tools are not going to tell you. So assess usability for people with disabilities. So you can actually invite a set of team with temporary, situational, or permanent disabilities, and they can actually give you real feedback. And you can also do some sort of exploratory testing, going in with a blank mind and coming back with results that you would have never found if you were doing an end-to-end test cycle. Assistive technologies are super useful. So use screen readers. There's quite a few out there, depending on what your company offers. But you have loads of free ones like NVDA and VoiceOver already that you can download. And some of them are actually part of your laptops already. So there's nothing stopping you from using that. And you can basically check if the screen reader is actually reading this text or the description of this image, and compare it to the transcript that it creates, because you want to see that the transcript versus the speaking over match. What happens many times is that this voiceover works, but the transcript is blank. And if someone wants to come and visit their transcript in the future, someone who might be blind, they have no information. So these are the things we should focus on. And of course, HTML validations, we should want to follow accessibility best practices. Again, you can see these in your government websites or the WCAG 2.2, which has been updated recently from 2.1. Focus on the key areas. So when you're planning your website or your app, or a tool or some sort of solution that you're trying to provide, and it should not only be for the customers that you're providing, it should be also for the internal users, because you might have people in your team who might be colorblind. So you want to think about internal as well, not just B2B. So focus on key areas in your planning processes. So I want to focus on this button, all the buttons on the main page. That's my focus area. And make sure that they actually deliver what they're supposed to deliver. Understand the content. So ensure text, images, videos, all audio is fully accessible. There's nice descriptions under each image that can be read. Videos also have a description for someone who might not be able to watch a video, and whatnot. Understand from the usability perspective as well. Support all browsers, assistive technologies, and device types. Try and use a latest browser versus a browser that was a few months or 6 months older. See if they still work at the same pace. Navigation wise, as the site should work via keyboard with no hidden elements or dead links. Many times, what happens is I'm using a keyboard because sometimes I feel comfortable with just keyboard, but I get trapped. And trapping is the worst we could do to our customers and ourselves, because you can't really conclude that task. Yeah. So we don't want people to have traps. Accessibility testing benefits, of course. So we've shifted to the left. We've focused on key areas. We want to understand the benefits of all these as well as part of our strategy. So, of course, you're going to have a wider reach, wider customer base. Include people with disabilities for your testing as well. Legal compliance, you're meeting standards like ADA and Equality Act, which is something that PractiTest provide. Better UX, so improves usability for all. I've noticed websites that actually work with accessibility, they're simple, they might not be funky, but they actually do the tasks right. So that's what we want to focus on. We don't want amazingly pretty websites. We want useful websites that can actually do a task from start to the end without any issues. You get a reputation boost because you show commitment to inclusion. You're socially aware as a company. And you get SEO benefits. You improve search rankings with best practices. So the software development lifecycle then. I really love this image, and I wanted to take you over this. So we all understand that we start from planning, analysis, design, implementation, testing and integration, VPATs, which are basically laws and regulation, and maintenance. VPAT is a law and regulation in the US. You can use the EU country laws now, because every country in the EU has a website for what their country believes is right accessibility for them. So what we want to do is we want to integrate insights into planning stage. So at the start, we want to make sure that we have the right epic created for accessibility, and we are putting it as part of every possible ticket that has to do with front end and back end accessibility needs. We want to do accessibility audits, manual and machine detectable, so tools and exploratory testing. We want to prioritize prioritization and integration of inputs into design phase. So we want to prioritize which part of the design is very important to be live so that people can use and give us the right feedback. We want the new feature functionality builds. So ARC knowledge base and ARC tutor code annotation. So ARC is a very, very useful tool that I've found, and it actually gives you annotations. And if some of you are using Figma, it gives you annotations as well. So you can provide that to your product designer or anyone who's actually designing this in your team. Arc API automated testing and policy compliance. Again, Arc gives you that sort of level as well if you want to go deeper. And then VPATs or accessibility conformance reports. So you can actually check the law of that country. You can use a free auditing tool like Site Improve, and then basically just make sure that you're complying with majority. And then you can also use an Arc monitoring monthly scanning and user-generated content. So Arc is a really nice tool that's a plugin you could use, and it gives you the right level of information to the point that it gives you pointers, annotations on your website or mobile app, and the process of how you've coded it. So it might start at 1, but jumps at 2 down here, 3 here, 4 here, 5 here, which is all muddled up. It should go in a tree level, top to bottom. So that's how you know that your design should follow a certain style. Oops, there we go. And again, if we think about test strategies, right, we want to think about strategy from a business perspective. We want to think about strategy from the technology and the tools perspective. What are the architects designing? How are we going to test that? And then obviously we want to test the testing side of it. But the main bit is many of the companies, many testing teams, many engineers as general forget about accessibility and remember at the very end. What we want to do is we want to bring this in early as part of our strategies, whether you're doing an engineering strategy together, whether you're doing a testing strategy, make sure there's a small little snippet, part of your strategy that explains what is the value in running this accessibility test and how is this going to support what you're trying to provide at the end of the day. I think when we give a whole story to our stakeholders, they understand things much, much better. So, the most important part, when we are thinking about accessibility, we have to convince stakeholders. Now, convincing can be easy or difficult depending on how we communicate. So, I will try and share with you some of my experiences. So, first of all, start chatting about accessibility. A11Y is a shorter version of accessibility because there's 11 characters between the A and Y, by the way. So, show some awareness. Prepare some informative slides for your stakeholders. It could mean that you do a session of a team, or it might mean that you do a session one by one, which might be a longer process, but you're reaching the right audience. Work on yourself, because sometimes the way we communicate and the way we convince, it's really, really important, because we don't want to sound dull and that, yeah, accessibility is important. We should be like, do you understand if we do not have accessibility as part of our tool, we are not being inclusive, we are not being socially aware, and we are reaching a separate market and we're not reaching an inclusive market? Use the keywords to drive your conversations forward. Speak to teams outside your area. Understand if anyone else is doing this in their area and if it's worked successfully. Do further research, suggest options that I was looking at these colors. I think we should maybe match this color to this one because it's more accessible, because you have tools online for free that you can match up colors that are accessible and compliant. You also want to showcase in your slides a mini report of the research you've done, because that backs up what you've been up to. So I think these are the steps that I would suggest to all of you when convincing about accessibility. The thing is, you shouldn't even need to convince. This should be part of your team and the way your team thinks. I thought I'll provide you a small little checklist here as well that could potentially help you. You want to understand the basic web document, the semantics, any headings, they should be in a specific style, not from H1 to H4. It should be H1, H2, H3, H4. Any images, they should have some descriptions. Any forms should actually have a form attached to it. Interactive elements, so if there's a video, you want to press play, or if there's slide to the right with your mouse, you want to explain this, that this person should be able to do that. Have keyboard navigation, any color contrasting, content that's timed content. So if there's a video that is about 2 minutes, we want to make sure that we describe this at the bottom. It's a 2-minute video explaining how we do flight safety training, for example. And single page application. So you want to check single pages, then you want to test multiple pages, for example, at the same time. So you may be wondering now, what could good look like for your teams? How should we actually strategize this? This is a simple example. I've rubbed off my tickets, but these are some simple ways of actually doing it in an agile way. When you have a design session, you should be actually talking and defining what actually is important. So things like what should the design look like? What sort of annotations are we getting on Figma? What sort of fonts are we using? What sort of order should be happening for that application? We want to then get into the development process and we want to basically check things in isolation, because let's check in isolation, then check them all together and make sure our code base and the front end work together successfully. Then we want to deploy these changes and we want to make sure that we can run our CI/CD pipelines. We can run any sort of linting or chromatic or something to make sure that we are doing some accessibility checks and we're getting the right sort of confidence. And then, of course, when we are releasing to prod, we want to provide some sort of auditing of how it's working in production. We want to understand the traffic. We want to also understand if we have picked the tickets correctly from design stage all the way to prod as well, because that's a place of studying that have we actually delivered what we thought in the design process. So this is what good could look like from start. I'm not saying that accessibility is the only thing you should be focusing on. Of course, you'll have hundreds of tickets in design, but don't forget, when you're building something for customers, make sure, and if it does have a front end, make sure that it's accessible. So your design phase should have a lot of tickets around accessibility too that need to be developed. So I would suggest follow my steps, research on accessibility and how your team could benefit. Test your application, show some details, and showcase them to your team. Prepare an informative session, discuss with your team or individually to stakeholders who are actually focusing on this area, and have accessibility as part of your testing approach, or should I say, as your engineering strategy. And I would definitely say that you would get a stamp of you are alified. I think it's not an easy process. It's taken a lot of time. It's taken me a minimum of 3 years to get into get my teeth into the right teams, show them that I'm not here to sabotage or make noise. I'm here only to support and support in the right direction. So, little summary for all of you: start early, be socially aware, understand what is good accessibility in your team or company, understand the values of your company, and understand if they're focusing on accessibility or not. There should be a law team and a design team focused on that. Make your checklist or a definition of done that includes accessibility as part of your definition of done. Don't wait for a legislation to come into action. We should be more reactive and proactive. Initiate any initial chats and make sure the word is being spread. Thank you very, very much. And I'm open to some Q&A now.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Laveena. We actually have some questions that were sent during the session. Actually, it was emailed even before the session to make sure that you're covering them. So I think the first question, I assume you've already answered that, but the first question was, what does inclusive testing mean in the context of QA? I think this was answered.
Yes, yes,
During the
yes.
session. So
Inclusive is just making sure that it might be that a developer might not mention this. It might be that a BA might not mention this because they have other priorities they're thinking about. But you, as a tester, we know there's functional and there's non functional testing. And always in non functional testing, performance testing, security testing is given the higher weight, but no one talks about accessibility. So I'd say be a bit proactive, bring this to the table, and then let it sort of digest with the BAs, the product owners, and then hopefully you're in the right direction. So that's called inclusive way of doing things.
thank you. The second question is about how can QA professionals stay updated with evolving accessibility standards, such as the WCAG and the AG that you've mentioned?
Yeah.
Is there any specific place that can make sure people are up to date?
You're today in the right space. So I would say webinars, conferences, these are the best places you learn about this. And I'm not sure if you know about ACTS. It's a very, very big tool by Decade. They do an accessibility conference every year for free online. And I think they are the ones who actually update a lot of the accessibility guidelines. I would suggest try that conference once and see if that helps you as well. Other than that, I think it's just researching, attending these sort of webinars, which are really useful because people come with updated information for all of you there. So it's a lot of learning with one another.
Thank you for this. That was the questions I think that were sent before. So we don't have any additional question at this point. So I will use the opportunity to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
And we're looking forward to seeing you all on our next month's webinar as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone, and see you soon.